Welcome to the Only Thing podcast, where we cut to the noise and we get laser focused on what truly matters: faith, family, fitness, and finance. I'm your host, Ryan Hughes. After 20 plus years in banking and helping people build financial freedom, I've learned success isn't about doing everything. It's about finding that one thing that truly builds legacy. Each week, athletes, entrepreneurs, experts join us to show how focus creates freedom. Let's dive in. Welcome to The Only Thing. I'm your host, Ryan Hughes. Today, I'm joined by TJ Mars, an entrepreneur, author, and financial educator. TJ is passionate about helping families and educate them on how to building wealth and legacy. Welcome to the show, TJ.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this fine Monday morning.
Yes, it's hope you had a great weekend, and I just look forward to catching up with you a little bit and learning, so you can share a little bit about what you're doing. And I know you've done a lot over the globe and been in different events and spoke. And I know you have a book out there, or a couple of different books, and just look forward to hearing a little more about you. And if you just wouldn't mind sharing a little bit, or we can jump into some questions I had, whatever you would like.
Okay. Well, just for the people to know a little background on me, I suppose first is, graduate U of O, Oregon Duck fan. I think Ryan is too, an Oregon Duck fan, at least a closet fan from what I understand anyway.
Go Buckeyes.
And former naval officer, naval intel, did shipboard operations, that kind of stuff. I've been through then after that, I went through the mortgage banking world and did a lot with finance and real estate over the years, wrote a couple of books on real estate investing and multiple courses on the subject. Along the way, I learned a lot about the law. So I also have developed a website on helping people handle their own legal affairs without lawyers. Nothing against lawyers, but there's a lot of things you can do on your own, and a lot of people can't afford them. So we try to help those people. And then further down the road, I've joined and helped co-found the Micro Venture Capital Fund, which is an opportunity for people to get in on the hedge fund game without having to be a billionaire. And so we've done those kind of things over the years. So currently, I'm really doing the two things: the law side and the venture capital fund. It's my main activity of what I'm doing these days.
No, that's great. No, I'm love to dive more into that a little bit, as we go on. And I think that's something in the world we're in. People looking for alternative assets. Sometimes it's hard to find those or not know where to go. And everyone thinks they have to go to the big boys, and which absolutely you can. But it's nice to have the opportunity where you see all these, you hear about people and the billionaires out there. They get to play in that space, and sometimes the smaller fish, we don't know where to go or who to talk to. So that's great. So I'm excited to hear more about that as well. And I had a couple. If there was like one mindset, like your number one mindset that you talk with people, and what would you say that is to help truly build wealth? Like, is there a certain mindset that
it's really a kind of a no quit attitude. In other words, really, there's an old saying about, for every obstacle, there's a new doorway opening, or something like that. I think that was Napoleon Hill or somebody like that. And it's really, really true. You've got to have the mindset that no matter what happens, it's just leading you to the next opportunity. Even a setback is really part of the path. I mean, if you're a Christian believer, you would probably say God's always got a plan. It just doesn't make it real obvious. Well, these are all signs that these kind of things really matter. It's a historical preference, And so the biggest thing is, yes, set clear goals, but also be willing to be flexible, because there's no straight path to success. That's my kids hate that one, because I tell it to them all the time when they get set back and get an obstacle. There's no straight path to success. So always be ready for that, but keep going. Just keep going. Like a good football team, they don't quit till the last play.
That's so true. We're going through a rough time with our. I coach a youth team, and they're won the championship the last few years, and now they're struggling a little bit. Sometimes you have to dig down, and there is not a clear path. You expect to keep doing it, but sometimes things God has a different plan, or certain things you have to just kind of dig deep. So I love that. It's not always a straight line. So
well, I think you're seeing it play out, and this is not even a political thing to say, but with Charlie Kirk, what happened? I mean, you see this thing that looks like a terrible setback, and it is horrific for his family and his friends and all the people that worked with him. But I pretty much can tell you that's just only going to magnify the goal, and it's going to get bigger, and it's going to become a bigger thing, like it or not, because it's based upon the right principles, and anything that's based on the right principles will endure.
That's true. I didn't even, I'm not, this is my first podcast, and I'm never really historically been a social media person or really news person in general. I guess my generation tends to, we weren't as so, my parents' generation were heavy with the news. And I guess I'm so dialed into work that I didn't even really know who Charlie Kirk was until all my kids did. And I found out, they listened to him all the time. And I was like, wow, all right. And you're right, because of this, people like me and other people that maybe weren't aware or what was going on, they are now. And you are seeing that. We're seeing it. And it's every, like you said, bad things, and the wrong things sometimes lead to better things. So,
yeah. It's very common. It's actually more common than not. So just be ready for that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I do have a question about legacy. So, I'm a big part of, for me, it's about legacy and how do I, being a father and, I have 6 kids and just, how do you define legacy in your own life and work? If you could pass that along to the generations.
Well, legacy is, a lot of that has to do, it's not with what you just give them physically, but what you give them spiritually and emotionally, and the lessons that you can pass on to them, well, at least the ones that they'll listen to. That's what I'm talking about, right?
It's funny. Sometimes they don't want to listen, right? They listen to someone else.
Dad's not the expert. What does he know? He can't even start the lawnmower, But the reality is, your legacy is really an example of what you could be. Give them the opportunity to see that the world isn't all bad. I think this current young generation is really dealing heavily with a negative world. I mean, I really feel like we are a victim of spiritual warfare. Actually, what's going on right now, and the tools that work against them are trying to keep them from their legacy. It's trying to tell them there's no future, there's no good in the world, and it's just not true. It's just not a factually correct statement. It's so I want my kids to know that there are things to be optimistic about, in spite of the obstacles. Again, I know in my focus when I do legal stuff, it's always about these bad situations people have, but at the same time, how do you turn that into a better situation? And I got a call last week from a fellow I hadn't heard from in 12 years. And he said, 12 years ago, I was on your podcast and you would tell this guy how to stop his foreclosure on his house and keep his house. And, and he had his rights and things he could do. And today that guy still has his house. Well, that's a legacy.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was out there. And I get a lot of that. I get a lot of that from people like, oh yeah, years ago you did this, you told me that. And so I just know that our words have the power of life and death. Again, that's a biblical principle. I'm not trying to Bible thump. I'm just telling you these are actual tools that really work. And I've had many people come up to me later after having said something that later on I find out had an effect. And the same thing is even with the kids. They'll hear something, it doesn't make sense now, but later they go, well, Dad, you're kind of right about that, and so I'm just trying to make sure that they have the best chance to see that the world is a beautiful place. There's plenty to be optimistic about, but it's up to us to make it that better place. So that's kind of the message of my legacy.
I like it goes back to mindset, right? It's your mindset and leaving a legacy, behind. And, that's something I try to instill that, there is a lot of, sometimes struggles or negatives in life. And, if you focus on that, that's where you're going to go. You're going to go down that path. But if you look to the good, that's where you're going to end. So,
well, I'm very careful about the words because just like that thing I was saying is that, what you say is the truth is going to become the truth if you're not careful. So in other words, you say, I can't do it. I'll say, well, then you're right.
Yeah,
because until you say you can, it won't happen. It's a fact of life.
It really is. Well, going to your microphone, I want to ask, this is some, for what you're doing and obviously your background. And, I love talking about legacy and family mindset. That's to me is the only thing to me. Like, that's why I have the podcast. And, And, but from an alternative investment standpoint, where do you see that playing, in the next, decade? How do you see alternative assets playing in the financial investment space?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think from our standpoint, let me just kind of, so people don't know what this fund is. It's a venture capital fund. Some would call it a hedge fund. And what we do is we've assembled the best, 15, 20 or so companies we could find based upon a whole lot of incredible analytics and difficult work they had to get through to get into the fund. And we're kind of like the Shark Tank. We pick the ones that we want in. And then we formed a fund, though, so our investors can come in and buy units in our fund, just like buying shares in a company. But our company invests in these companies, and we know how to select them. You're not probably the expert on that. And so we put them together. We create a diverse portfolio of opportunities. But what we really look for in our opportunities are cutting edge companies that are really going to make a really big difference in the world. Let me give you an example. One company has developed a product. I don't have one here, but I probably do. You probably get all kinds of plastic containers, and you get the Amazon boxes and all this stuff that's filling our landfills up, right? And plastic cups and plastic lids. Well, they have revolutionized the manufacture of that to make it out of actual food starches. And by making it out of food starches rather than oil-based products, it becomes biodegradable. But not only is it biodegradable, they use nanotechnology to program it when to biodegrade.
Interesting.
So if they manufacture a cup and in 3 years they want to make sure that's nowhere on the planet, it'll disappear.
Wow.
Stuff like that. Now that, and by the way, it's cheaper to produce than plastic cups. So it's even cheaper. So that's the winning combination for a business. Lower price production, high demand. They already got orders from Starbucks, McDonald's, in the billions, literally. Our biggest problem at the fund is to help them get enough money to manufacture. That's the kind of stuff we want to do. Now that's going to leave a legacy because that will literally change the face of the planet.
Oh yeah, it changes the world for sure.
Yeah, we have another one that's just simple water-based product that you can put these little drops, in your water, 2 drops in your water, your coffee. Every chemical in there is gone. It instantly just.
Those are the things that typically people don't see. Like a typical investor, something with a family, that's probably something that they're not aware of.
Not aware, but actually, today it's kind of interesting now because of there's all this talk about what's in the water and autism and all these diseases people are getting and wondering why is our disease rate so. Probably has a lot to do with our food and our water, Mm-hmm. So I think there's an awareness of it. I mean, people are buying organics, they're doing all these other things. So we think this product's a real winner because it really is sort of an insurance policy against chemicals in your food and your water.
You hear that's all we hear about, right? The chemicals on our food and what all the preservatives and stay away from this or that.
Yeah. So we look for these ideas, these companies that have this and we just somehow don't know how it is, but that law of attraction. Once you're looking for something, suddenly it starts to appear, and there's these problems out there, and then there are solutions, and but somebody hasn't quite put the solution together, and usually it requires putting together the money to make that happen, and so and it goes on and on. I mean, we have a technology that like AI, we have kind of all probably heard about that. And a few years ago, you didn't think about it. Now it's everywhere, and it's a product that will actually. Well, the big problem with AI is how much energy it's using. I mean, I saw somebody demonstrate one little stack of computers in an AI bay, and somebody said, "Well, how much energy is that using?" It says it's using the energy of 30,000 homes just to process the AI.
Interesting.
And I thought, wow. So that's why the energy problem is a problem with AI. So what if you could produce it at half the price overnight? You'd probably want to find out how to do that. And it helps, again, that's good for the planet. It's good. I mean, I'm not a big environmentalist, but hey, I want my kids to grow up in a clean world. So, I want to, there's an application that can be basically, we can modify and install these new types of, this coating that goes on the chips that will actually cause them to use half the energy. It's that simple.
So it's
big problems.
That's great.
It's not solving everything, but it's a step in the right direction. But you can imagine that investors want these kind of products. And so we have them in our fund.
So would you say, like, someone starting out, when you're getting, a family or even just a young graduate that's starting out, talking about these investment opportunities, obviously there's some risk to this, but what would you say is the only thing that you find that they should, what's one thing that they should focus on first when they're starting out? And
well, okay, now, what we're talking about is something that really is for somewhat of a more experienced investor to buy into. It's called accredited investor.
Sure.
It's not a huge obstacle, but that's what we want to have. Be sure people understand the risks, because there's always risks. But the first thing to understand is you will not be successful investing without taking risks. Absolutely. And then you also have to understand what it is to mitigate your risks and learn these basic concepts. You need to take risks, but you learn how to mitigate them. Now, if you learn those two things, you can make a fortune in this world. And the third one is start early. It's not about you, but you and I, if I started now on everything, I wouldn't have much, in a couple of years. But if I have 30 years for compounding and those principles to work, it can make a huge difference. So learning some basic, simple principles, and you don't need that next smartphone tomorrow. You need another $1,000 in your investment account.
Sure. You got to start. That's, and I remember starting out when I was young, it's like put money in a 401k, make sure you start putting money away, and it shows how much it compounds. So It's not necessarily putting it, then of course, then you are, then you have this wealth that you can put into these other investment strategies and opportunities.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere, you got to, start putting it into an investment vehicle. And even if it is just the 401k with your company is matching, it's free money. And then
that's free money. You can't turn that down.
How many people don't, they don't participate in those. That's something that unfortunately just, you don't think about it when you're 22, 23 years old.
Yeah, they don't. And I mean, it's, I want to tell my kids are in that age range. I just, so much, sometimes I want to just tell them, you can cut your taxes way down if you do a couple things over here and have a business, and you can just, at the very least, well, why is that important? Well, because it's going to add up to more money you can invest. It's just, there's so many ways to do it. But how do you get that across to a young person? I guess you show them some poor, broke old people and say, if you want to be like that, or if you want to be that guy that has some nice things.
Well, and that brings up another topic that I wanted to discuss a little bit with you. And I know we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago. We were at a conference, and speaking about accredited investors and people making money and starting out. Well, we're all seeing these, the NIL and these entrepreneurs and people that are in there, whether they're TikTok influencers or they're actual, the famous, NIL guy that's coming, or a girl that's coming into college, and they're getting millions of dollars, right? Some of them, not all of them, but they're all getting paid something. Yeah. And with that, and that goes back. Well, they're immediate. All of a sudden, they're credited, right? I got 2-3 million. I mean, that's
they're ready to go. Yeah, they should be.
What are they? It's what would you suggest, or is there anything you would, talk to those groups that are out there making that kind of money and.
Well, there certainly is going to be a need for that in that community that I think discussed the potential of that huge community that's going to be there. It's there. The first thing a young person does when they get a lot of money is throw a party.
That was my next point. What are the pitfalls?
Yeah,
what do you avoid? What do you avoid, right?
Yeah. So you really want to, you want to show them, you almost need to show them examples of people that have failed at that situation. And then you start to show them the benefit of taking care of your money now. One tool I used a few years ago with my kids, because they all wanted to go, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do when I go to college. What am I going to major in? And these are the same kind of decisions these young people with money are dealing with. It's like, what do I do with this? And I told them, I said, well, look, treat your education as a business decision, not an education decision. In other words, which one's going to get you the outcome that you want? As opposed to, well, this will really be cool to study flower art or underwater basket weaving because it sounds like fun. I said, I ain't paying for that. That's the deal. So you got to come to me with a plan. And I just restricted the money. So I kind of used the money as a leverage. It's like, okay, here, come to me with the business plan. So we watched this program that was on at the time. It was called Broke, Busted, and Disgusted. Every kid thinking about college should watch this video. Broke, Busted, and Disgusted. You can find it on the internet. And it'll show you these examples of all these students who rushed to go to college right at age 18. Then at the end, they had to hold up their cards of how much debt they had. And they're like, $120,000, $150,000. And you just looked at it like, you look like an idiot. I mean, you're holding this debt in your hands, and then they'd ask, now what's your plan? They go, oh, I don't know. I'll get a job. And I was told I can pay like $20 a month and it'll be paid off in 3 years. I said, so let's see, maybe we should teach them math first,
Start with that. Yes.
Like
I
basic
agree.
math. So you have to show that the power of compound interest, show that the benefits of having a family and creating some wealth, and why that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And having some priorities, because the results, the consequences, like they showed, were bad. And so my kids watched that, and they're like, and they said, Dad, okay. One said, I'm going to be a registered nurse. And one said, I'm going to be a computer programmer. I said, okay, sounds good. Are you sure? Yes, absolutely. I said, okay, I like it. Firm decision. No guessing. You can wait. You can wait 2 or 3 years if you want. And then I said, now what's the least resistance path to get there? And so where I live, they have a program called Running Start, where in the last 2 years of high school, instead of going to the public high school and mostly goofing off, unless they're doing athletics, which they can do that too, but they actually go to the college over here, the community college, and they are taking college courses for 2 years. And when they're done, they get the high school diploma and an associate degree for college. 2 years of college knocked out for free. I said, that's a good business decision, because those things are expensive, those credits. So I said, what do you think of that? And they like, Dad, that's a good business decision. They started thinking a little bit like that, So I kind of made them think it was their decision. They got the choice to do it or not. All 3 of them did it. So I was real happy about that. I got the last one still trying to decide what to do next, but yeah.
Well, I think I'm still trying to decide sometimes, I think we're all trying to find that, what we're going to do in life. And
yeah, you just don't know. And that's the other thing about this, is that you don't need to know. You just first use of college is just general prerequisite stuff anyway. And sometimes it's a waste of money, and maybe you don't do anything else other than that. Fine. Go find a job, start a business, whatever. I'm not saying 4-year degree, because it's actually not the answer for a lot of kids today.
No, it's not. Well, TJ, I know we're kind of running out of time. I just wanted, is there anything, I'm so glad you were able to come on the show. Is there anything as we wrap up that you would want to, anything else you want to add? And I definitely want to have you on another show.
Be my pleasure. Yeah. Well, other than if we're talking to somebody thinking at the early stages of investing, start now. Open an account. Go open a brokerage account. Just do it right now. Go online. Takes a few minutes. Maybe today even open a crypto wallet like Coinbase or Crypto.com. You better get ready, because it's not coming. It's here.
It's here.
and it is already going to be a part of your economics and what you do. I'm not saying invest or speculate yet. Just learn the basics. So just get your hands in and make managing your finances a part of your life. Make it a priority. And nobody else is ever going to do it as well for you as you're going to do for you. So you have to also get a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of command of how to manage money. If you don't know, find a book on the subject. I'm sure you got plenty of recommended books.
There's tons
websites.
Tons of it out there, right? There's
Dave Ramsey is a good one. And he's okay. I mean, I think he teaches my young married couple. I gave that to them for a wedding gift instead of another teapot. And they, they actually use it.
That's great.
And it'll last. There's a legacy, right? So
absolutely.
Think like that in terms of your life, your value. You're going to create your own value, and you are literally a commodity in this world. What you produce will create wealth. It doesn't happen accidentally. It's what's right between here. Our brains have the capacity to create all kinds of things if we use it. So use your resources. Get a little knowledge about how to manage money. I tell people, get a little knowledge about basics of law. That sounds boring to a lot of people, but in actuality, you can't walk out your front door without dealing with something legal. You can't even use your smartphone, because it's going to say, do you agree to the terms and conditions? Do you agree to the terms? You just signed a contract. Well, what is that? If you don't even kind of know the basics of that, you can get in a lot of trouble.
Absolutely. No, that's all great. I mean, those are all things that we all need to think about. And there's tools everywhere, right? There's
plenty available. But stay away from the junk social media. Feed your mind something that's going to help you, not that's going to pollute your mind. Please.
Love it. Well, TJ, this is great. I always love, when we have these conversations. It's never enough time for us to have these. So look forward to catching up again. And again, thanks for coming on the show. And
thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. It was a great opportunity to meet you, and looking forward to continuing our relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day, and God bless.
Thank you. Take care.